All right, one more time before I actually start. How is it? I need to get this down.
Joan Beringer.
Joan Beringer. Okay. All right. I
Good
think that's
enough.
how we'll start. I'll do the cold open for once and put that in there. Joan Beringer. And of course, I'm going to up too. So that's
That's
how,
all right.
that's how it goes. The Wolves ended up staying at their pick at 17 and taking young French center Joan Beringer or Beringer, however you say it. I told you in the cold open I would screw this up, and guess what? I did. So it happens. I'm gonna eventually get that. It's only been less than a day, but the Wolves ended up staying at their pick. Will, you were covering the draft for Timberwolves on SI. What can you tell us about this young French center and what he provides to the Timberwolves?
Yeah, this is a really interesting pick. Beringer is 18 years old. He doesn't turn 19 until November. He grew up playing soccer and then kind of outgrew soccer. Got a little bit too tall for that. I think they said he couldn't find any cleats that fit him, so he moved to basketball in about 2021, post COVID, which is crazy to even think about. He's just started playing basketball like 4 years ago, when he was 14 years old, and has made really kind of significant strides since then. He was recently playing professionally in Slovenia, where he didn't average big numbers. They're not going to catch your eye. It's something like 5 points, 4 rebounds, 1 to 2 blocks per game. But the upside is there when you see some of the highlights. You hear some of the things that Wolves GM Matt Lloyd says, some things that the draft analysts in their scouting reports say. This is a guy who can move really, really well. He's super bouncy. He's somewhere, I've seen different reports. He's either 6'10 or 6'11 or 7 foot, somewhere in there. Maybe still growing, given that he's 18 years old. Already has like a 7'4", 7'5" wingspan. So it's length, bounciness, athleticism, and movement ability. And then obviously there's going to be a lot of natural Rudy Gobert comps. But there seem to be some slight differences. Like he sort of moves like a wing in some respects, a way that, as Timberwolves fans know, Rudy Gobert doesn't. Like there are clips of this guy catching passes at the 3-point line, taking one dribble and dunking, and that's just not something Rudy Gobert does. And he also, the scouting reports say he has really good hands and he catches everything. Also, another thing that Rudy Gobert does. I'm not saying that he has this super high ceiling or a higher ceiling than Rudy Gobert, because Rudy Gobert is a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, a future Hall of Famer. Like I don't know that the defense is going to be on that level, but I think if you're talking 100th percentile outcome, it would be a Rudy type defender who can also catch the ball on offense, have a little touch, um, and do some even maybe Giannis like things to throw out like another complete high end, super high end, unlikely upside comp. So the Wolves are really excited. Who knows? I think this is a low floor possibility because he just hasn't been playing basketball for that long, and so who knows? But I also think the ceiling is really high, and they were really happy when he fell to them at number 17.
Tony, from what's been talked about in the hours since the draft, is this a draft and stash? Do we expect him to play next season? Are the Wolves going to keep him, or are they going to use him as a trade asset? Because we know they have been in a lot of talks, or they've been rumored to be in a lot of talks this offseason for potential draft moves, or trade moves. So what have you gathered that the plans are for this kid?
Yeah, it sounds like he's coming to Minnesota and he's going to join the franchise play in the summer league, which I think is a great sign. Um, and I'm not going to pretend that I know a lot of information about this guy or really even watched him play before, but from a pure like team building standpoint, I like the move from a roster making standpoint because the Timberwolves draft anyone in this scenario, it obviously it all pertains to if they're going to run it back. But let's say they run it back, bring back Julius Randle, bring back Nas Reed. Maybe they lose Nickeil Alexander Walker. There probably wouldn't be a spot in the rotation for anyone you take at 17 this year. But now Berenguer, he can sit and learn from Rudy Gobert. Everyone's going to talk about that. Might be different players, but And then you can learn from Julius Randle, from Naz Reid. There's a lot of good veteran talent on this team now, and I think you can give him a year or two with really no expectations now. Play a lot in the G League. He can develop. He can get used to playing American basketball, which is a different style. And I like the raw skills from what I've seen. Will mentioned yesterday. You watch a couple highlights and you're like, wow, this guy's good. But yeah, he definitely moves a lot different than Rudy Gobert. He is not. He's not the stifle tower. He's not very stiff. I think he's a lot more flowy, and he has a little wing movement in his game where he can not necessarily create, but he can score the ball a little bit and make some moves offensively, which I think is a little intriguing for his long term potential.
Will, are you surprised the Wolves stayed at 17 and took a player? Because, as I mentioned before, there's been a lot of talks and rumors and speculation and reports that this is a team that could be very busy this offseason, and they could have been looking to move that pick as part of a big package to bring in a big name player. Are you surprised they ended up staying at 17 and taking a player?
Yeah, I was mildly surprised just given the track record of Tim Connelly and his propensity for making deals. Matt Lloyd said in his press conference that Tim was working the phones and he was very active, potentially moving up, moving down, all these different things. But it ended up working out that a guy they really, really liked was there at 17, and they felt like he was good value, and they felt like he was a good fit. So they stayed put and they made the pick. And like Tony said, I like it. I think you certainly can look at this Wolves roster and say, okay, if they had drafted any number of kind of more ready-made prospects who were available at 17, Kasparis Yakachonis, the Illinois guard, or Walter Clayton, the Florida guard, or Asa Newell from Georgia, who's a slightly older, still young, but or Danny Wolf, or a lot of other guys who went in that back half of the first round. Like, yeah, they would be closer to contributing, but would they contribute next year? We just saw last year that Chris Finch didn't really have room for Rob Dillingham or Terrence Shannon Jr. in the rotation because he had 8 starting caliber guys, they like to say, and that was their rotation when they were healthy. And unless they make some sort of deal that results in Julius Randle being gone or Naz Reid being gone or who knows, it looks pretty similar for next year because maybe Nas gone, but then you've got Shannon and Jalen Clark stepping into those roles. So I like the long term swing for upside here. Um, he has the kind of ceiling to be able to battle with the Wembys and the Chets and just these freakish, long, athletic bigs in the Western Conference and around the league. Like, that's a really valuable thing in the NBA. It's going to take time. It's going to take development. He's going to probably play a lot in Iowa, like Tony said. I think that's kind of, you have to do that because where else is he going to develop? But the upside is really tantalizing. They said even they think he can step out 15 to 17 feet and hit some shots. And if he can do that, I mean that could be potentially huge. We haven't really seen it a whole lot on his Slovenian tape, but not that I've been grinding the Slovenia. I've just been watching the highlights. But
You've been grinding Slovenian YouTube like the Vikings were grinding German YouTube back in the day for Moritz Boringer.
oh wow, what a throwback! No, but just from watching the highlights, I don't think that's in his game yet. And reading the scouting reports, but maybe there's some potential with some of the touch that he's shown around the basket. So he's got a ton of work to do. It's going to be a really interesting project for the Timberwolves player development coaches and that whole program. But without the obvious path for a player to contribute next year as a rookie, I think this is an interesting gamble for a guy who, like Tony said as well, gets just the perfect situation to come into where he can learn from Rudy Gobert, his countryman who had a similar experience when he came over and joined the Jazz in 2013 as a really young, raw French big man. So great guy to learn from, adjust to the NBA. And I don't know that you'll see a lot of Joan Beringer in the 2025-26 NBA season, but maybe 2, 3, 4 years down the line. But I am excited to watch him playing in the summer league. The Wolves could have a potentially crazy summer league team if Dillingham and Shannon and Clark and maybe Leonard and Miller and Beringer, and maybe they draft another guy tonight, which I'm sure we might talk about. But yeah, I like the pick. I've talked myself into Tim Connelly's vision here.
So far this offseason, Will, you've talked yourself into being okay that the Wolves passed on Kevin Durant, and now you're talking yourself into Beringer.
I believe in Tim Connelly.
Yeah,
I don't.
it's
I
hard
think all
not to.
Wolves fans, like, if you look at the 3-year track record since he was hired,
Mhm.
I think the best thing to do is just let Tim cook and trust the process, because they've gotten back-to-back Western Conference Finals with 2 different kind of rosters in some respects, and I really I see the vision, and I think we got to trust Timmy C to do his thing.
Yeah, it's so fascinating as someone who's followed the Timberwolves their whole life. Like, I remember so many times growing up watching Derek Williams go 2 overall, or Wesley Johnson 3 overall, or any of these NBA drafts. Obviously, the Johnny Flynn one over Steph Curry, but it just, compared to a draft like this, that you're just kind of like, yeah, I don't know, he might be good. I kind of see the vision. Like, those drafts, I remember leaving that. I'm like, why the heck did they draft this guy? Like, he stinks. Like, Wesley Johnson, like, that was one of the worst.
You didn't believe in Wes Johnson or Derek Williams?
No, I saw the Derek Williams vision. Like, that's a hindsight one. The Wes Johnson one was not a good pick in the moment, not a good pick afterwards. So that one I'll say was pretty dumb. But it's an interesting time to be a Wolves fan and someone who follows the team, because it's like we don't really even know how to act. It was a decade of that with David Kahn and all these just crazy draft picks, and now you see a pick like this and you want to believe, which is just so different than what it has been.
Will, you brought up something that Tony wrote about, and Tony, I'm going to ask you about this. Is the Wolves? They have the 31st pick in the draft, which is the first pick in the second round that takes place later tonight as of recording. What is the expectation for the Wolves? I know there's been a lot of talk from the GM, from the front office of the Timberwolves, of what they may or may not do. There's been some reporting on it. What's the plan for that 31st pick for the Timberwolves tonight?
Yeah, I mean, we heard Matt Lloyd say that they're considering, or they're taking calls at the very least, because last year the Toronto Raptors, I believe, had the 31st pick, and they got some serious offers. I don't know if they ended up trading that pick or not, but like, you could have teams offering a future first round pick, because this 31 is essentially a first round pick. I mean, it's very, very close to being a first round pick, but with the added benefit of being a second round pick in terms of the rookie scale and the contract, it's less than first rounder. So it's a really valuable asset that the Wolves got as kind of another throw in that trade that landed them Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Mike Conley from the Jazz, which was just an absolute fleecing by Tim Connelly. And I think they have another Utah second rounder next year from that deal too. So we'll see. I mean, we saw a couple teams last night in the first round really pay to move up. Grizzlies went from 16 to 11. They gave up an unprotected future pick, a couple second rounders. Craziest one was the Pelicans going from 23 to 13, giving up an unprotected first rounder next year in what's supposed to be a loaded draft. That is the better pick between them, who might still be terrible. They're in the
Might
West.
be one of the worst teams in the league.
They're the New Orleans Pelicans. Like, okay, you have Jordan Poole and Jeremiah Fears, and Zion never plays. Like, that was crazy. Or it's the Bucks, who, like, maybe if they trade Giannis or Giannis gets hurt or something, they could be really bad. That was insane. Great work by the Hawks to move back 10 picks and get a guy in Asa Newell who could have easily gone in the lottery. So if some team comes and makes an offer like that, I mean, I think the Wolves, there's some guys at 31 who would be really interesting. Rasheer Fleming is the big name that everybody knows about because he was kind of projected as a first rounder. But the quote from Shams Charania on ESPN was basically that he said, "I'm told that pick is currently in the process of being auctioned off to the highest bidder. There's multiple offers coming in for the Timberwolves, multiple future assets potentially. So it seems like a very real chance that the Wolves basically are enacting a bidding war for that 31st overall pick. And that would kind of make sense because, like we said, if you draft a Rasheer Fleming or a guard like Tyrese Proctor or Cam Jones or who knows with that pick, again, are they going to play? Like, and I know the draft isn't all about just next year. It could be the future. They could potentially stay and take a player there. But if you get that future asset, that's more flexibility for trades. That's just more future flexibility. So I think that would be something to look for tonight for sure.
Tony?
Yeah, I think for the same reasons we said that Beringer might not play that much this year, or really even the next 2 years, I would be in favor of getting a future asset, especially with all the moving parts they might have with Rudy Gobert aging. Maybe a year or two from now, they move on from him, and that just gives you another thing to throw in trades. And if they do get one of these guards, a lot of them are on the older side. I kind of feel like with Proctor, Cam Jones, Ryan Nemhard from Gonzaga, a guy who I really like. That they probably don't have a spot on the roster, and you kind of already know like what those players are. They're not like a Beringer type of guy who's you can throw in Iowa and he might blossom into this wonderful player. So if they do trade back, I think that is really sound processing again from Tim Connelly. But if they do stick there, I think there's a lot of players that they could look at that could contribute early. And you never know. Maybe there's an injury and a roster spot opens and they need one of those guys. And maybe those 13, 14 spots on your depth chart, they pay off if you have some depth there. But I really don't think they can go wrong, in all honesty. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, though.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you have two options here, and I like both of them. Like, either you take a player, and Tony, you had this list of some of the best players available. Like, you take a Fleming, you take in Adu Thiero from Arkansas, Tyrese Proctor, Cam Jones. Kobe Brea is a ridiculously good shooter. Like, that might be the only thing he does, but if you watch that dude at either Dayton or Kentucky, he can shoot the lights out of the ball from three. Or, like you said, Nemhard. There's a guy, Noah Penda. If they wanted to just do an all French draft, they worked him out. They worked him out at Target Center a week or two ago. Really intriguing defensive wing, kind of do it all guy. Questions about the shot, but you could just go all French, and I you know what, I would be sold on that. Or you trade it, you auction it off because there's some bigs where like I don't know that the Wolves would want to draft another big after you just drafted one like Ryan Kalkbrenner or Maxime Reynaud from Stanford, or I mean Fleming to some extent. Like there could be teams really interested in coming up and getting a first round level talent who would give you a future first and then maybe some on top of that. So either way, I can't lose tonight if I'm a Wolves fan, in my opinion.
Yeah, it should be fun. Tony, it was mentioned that you did a list. You wrote a list over at Timberwolves on SI of some of the best prospects. Who's the guy that you, if the Wolves do stay, that you want to see them take?
I would say Ryan Nemhard.
You're going Nemhard, right? Yeah, I like it.
I've always had a soft spot for Gonzaga. I like watching them play, and he just does so much stuff that's similar to his brother, and I just could see him having a similar career. Nemhard might be one of the best passers in this year's draft, and I think he could step in and contribute to an NBA rotation pretty quickly, run a second unit, and just be a guy that 5 years from now we're kind of looking back and we're like, why was he a second round pick? Like,
yeah,
I think he's going to stick around in the NBA. He just does too many things too well. He's a good passer, a good shooter, good decision maker, and guys like that stick around in the NBA. I don't think he's going to be this star by any means, but sometimes you need a backup point guard. We saw it with the Pacers how valuable TJ McConnell was, and I could see Nemhard having a career like that, and I feel like the Wolves kind of need a guy like that. So if I stuck at 31, that's who I would look at. I doubt they do because he's kind of pretty far down the consensus, but if I was making the decisions, that's what I would do.
Hey, the Blazers took Henson Yang at 16. Anything is possible.
Very true.
Shout out to the Chinese Jokic. I hope he's dope. I like that guy.
Jokic. This should be a fun one for sure. You'll have it all covered over at Timberwolves on SI. Go read the rest of our work over on Vikings, Twins, and Gophers on SI, covering it all for you. Tony's got a ton on recently a ton on Gophers recruiting and some of the recruits that have committed and PJ Fleck's work there in that department. So go read all that
Twins
work.
won a
over
game
there.
yesterday, by the way.
Hey, look at that. It happens.
It's possible. Only when
Question
Joe
is, are they
Ryan
going to play
pitches,
today?
but
They going
no,
to get
probably
the
not.
game finished today?
Probably not. It's very
Probably not.
nicely rainy outside my window right now.
Same. Hit subscribe to the channel. It does help us get found. Also notifies you every time we post a new video to the channel. We will talk to you tomorrow with another topic across Minnesota sports. Talk to you then.
Joan Beringer.